Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your host Sean. On this episode, we have Christmas come early with the Bulls and the Bears giving away games left and right. And then you have a red-hot Patrick Kane carrying the Blackhawks single-handedly. All this and more on this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. But first, we'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. Behind 3 straight wins versus San Antonio, the Rockford Ice Hogs have vaulted themselves into first place. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL team of the Chicago Blackhawks. You get to see the Stars of Tomorrow today for the Blackhawks. Only 90 minutes from the city limits. Fun for the whole family. Tickets starting at just $7. The next home game will be Friday, December 11th versus Iowa at 7 p.m. at the beautiful BMO Harris Bank Center. Make sure you check them out at icehogs.com. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. All right. As much as it sickens me, I'm going to talk Cubs. I'm going to talk about Bears first. We coming off the huge win against the Green Bay Packers on Thanksgiving night, on Brett Favre night, gained all that momentum, still in the playoff hunt. It's late and I'm old. They're still in the playoff hunt. I mean, it was a long shot. There was several teams ahead of them, but they're, like we talked about before, is you only needed to catch up to that one last spot, and Atlanta's a free fall right now. They're falling apart. Seattle's the team that you got to worry about. So basically, if you can catch Seattle, you could have made that last wild card spot. The crappy thing is that they were a game ahead of you already, and they own the tiebreaker because they beat you head to head. But you had the much easier remaining schedule. They had to go and play Minnesota this week, and you got the lowly, terrible 49ers. And Seattle goes in there, takes care of business, thumping the Vikings. It was a 38-7, and you lose to the 49ers, giving up their first road win all season. Pathetic. So let's jump in. First, I want to talk about Jay Cutler. He's a damn enigma. I've praised him so much going into the season and throughout this season, and talked about the maturity he's had and making decisions and audibling at the line of scrimmage and throwing balls away and whatever it may be to make the play. Keep going. Oh. Yawning. Why am I so old? But he really did break his streak of consecutive games with doing all the right things this week, and it was he did it in a doozy fashion. First, there was the pick six, and I want to talk about the pick six for a second. He audibled. I mean, he started off on the right foot on that play. He saw what was going to be a free blitzer for the 49ers coming in, so he audibled and made the play for into a screen pass or a pass that he was going to roll out, throw it, pass out in the flat. But then he threw this lazy pass that got picked off by Jimmy Ward. and got returned for a touchdown. And there was a quote from Jimmy Ward. And if you guys don't remember Jimmy Ward, he was a rookie last year out of Northern Illinois, safety, corner safety hybrid. But anyway, talked to Jimmy Ward after the game, and this was his quote. Film study. We knew they like to run a lot of their screens with their back and 17 being Alshon Jeffrey, especially. So I was showing blitz. Coach called the zone, but I was showing blitz. So I think Cutler thought I was coming off the edge, so he checked into that call. Once he checked into that call, we knew that he was going to be checking too. And Bo, talking about Navarro Bowman, did a really good job of giving a fake call, a dummy call, like we were checking, and we stayed in the zone. So they knew the play that Jay Cutler was going to be checking into. Once they knew he was checking into it, they faked him again, thinking that they were going to change the call based on his call, and they stayed in their zone. And what happened is then you had Jay Cutler throwing right into the perfect defense for him for that play, and Jimmy Ward plucked the ball right out of the air and took it home for 6. That was bad. It was a bad decision. Jay should have, when he saw the tight coverage, thrown the ball away. Yeah, he's got to be making better decisions than that. And then later in the fourth quarter, he threw another surefire interception that just absolutely got dropped by the 49ers. And in between, he missed a lot of open receivers. It was not the best moment for Jay Cutler. And statistically, if you look at Pro Football Focus, it was Jay Cutler's worst statistical performance of the season. So it started off with bad quarterback play and went downhill from there. The play calling was a little bit the play calling on offense was suspect too. If you look at the 2 best drives that the Bears had on offense, the play calling was really mixed up, so it kept the 49ers on their heels. They got away from keeping the defense honest, and that's when the 49ers were really able to key in. When it was a surefire run play, the 49ers really came in and stopped them short. And when it was surefire pass play, they were coming in with blitzes and disrupting the play and causing either Cutler to have to throw fast or throw the interception or take the sack. But when they kept them off balance and you didn't know if it was going to be a run or pass or what kind of formation it was going to come out of, whether you're going to do an outside-inside run, roll out the quarterback, short pass, deep pass, that's when you were getting your best. And the Bears really did get away from that. And they also got away from doing some deep passes because that's what was opening it up, and it was preventing the 49ers from really bringing that extra guy down in the box to help with the run play. They also got away from the play action pass. That's what's keeping the 49ers defense honest, is if they really think there's a threat of running, even on a pass play, you're going to freeze your linebackers and you're going to freeze those safeties for a second, and it's going to give you enough time to get a pass either across the flat or to one of your deeper wide receivers. So it was frustrating to see that Adam Gase had a poor night play calling on offense as well. Trouble executing and trouble calling plays. The O-line was really Jekyll and Hyde. If you look at it from a statistical point of view, it looked like they had a really good game. The Bears ran for 170 yards and 12 rushes for first down. They were clearly at times dominating the 49ers defensive front. And there was only 1 tackle for a loss, and the team averaged 4 yards per carry on rushing. They only gave up 1 sack. And if you look at the Pro Football Focus grades, Patrick Omame got a plus 4.8, and Matt Slauson got a plus 4.3. So they both ranked really high. The 2 guards had an exceptional game. But if you look at it beyond just those numbers, it told a much different story. If you look at it, Kyle Long didn't have a great game, and the rookie Hronis Grasu didn't have a great game either. and you just saw a lot of pressure coming up Jay Cutler. I tried to find the pressure numbers, but I couldn't pull those up. But there was quite a few quarterback pressures and quarterback hurries on Jay Cutler that forced him, and most of those were coming from odd blitzes or collapsing the pocket. You weren't getting a lot of straight coverage pressure as much as they were as bringing blitzes, but if you looked, the 49ers were getting quite a bit of pressure and really disrupting what the Bears were trying to do on offense, and that was that didn't tell the story about how well they ran it versus not giving up any sacks. The sacks were testament to getting the ball out quickly and Jay throwing it quickly, rather than there was no pressure at all, because the pressure numbers didn't necessarily equate to sacks. As far as the Bears running backs, they were pretty good for the game. Forte got the lion's share of the work with 84 yards on 21 carries. Langford had 12 carries for 59 yards, and Kadeem Carey had 5 carries for 17 yards, which doesn't sound like a lot, but 2 of those 5 runs one was a big fourth quarter rush for a first down to help rushing grade than Matt Forte, and Langford carried for 59 yards, 35 of those yards after the first contact, and broke a pair of tackles. Meanwhile, Forte carried 21 times for 84 yards, 60 of them were after contact, broke 6 tackles, and scored a touchdown. But it was the other facets of the game where Forte set himself apart, however. Caught all but 5 targets for 39 yards, where Langford caught just 2 of 3 passes for 9 yards and struggled in pass protection, giving up a pair of hurries and just 5 block attempts. And that's a big aspect of that you lose a little bit with Matt Forte. Matt Forte has become a heck of a blocker. It's a they're running back and how well they can carry and how well they can carry and how well they can carry. But you forget a lot about is to be able to be a 3-down back in the NFL is you've got to be able to block. That's just a given, and you've got to be a good blocker, especially if you're going to be on a team where you've got a star quarterback. If you're on a New England and you've got Tom Brady and you give up, you could be the best running back in the world, but if you are letting Tom Brady get smashed because you can't pick up a block on a blitz or a free blocker, you are not getting any playing time. It's just not going to happen. Or what happens is even worse than that is they only put you in on running plays, and then the defense sees when you come in, and they go, well, this guy can't pass block, so it's going to be a run, and they gear up and they call a play against the run, and that just makes you look worse than you are because they're gearing up to stop you every time. I don't think that's really happening with the Bears because they really are interchanging Jeremy Langford and Matt Forte like they were the same person. They're not changing up plays. They're running the same plays that they would. It's just Jeremy Langford's a rookie, and picking up the blocking scheme is something that takes a little bit of time in the NFL. It's as a running back. Usually your running game comes first, then your pass catching game, then your blocking scheme. And Jeremy Langford as a whole has been a pretty good blocker. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been out on the field as much as he is. But Matt Forte is, 8-9 year veteran. It takes a long time to be able to get to that level. So Jeremy Langford's got a little bit to go, but it's 3/4 of the way through his rookie season, and he's done pretty well. He just had a rough game this one, and that's more of a testament, I think, to the 49ers, the blitzes they were running rather than it was to Jeremy Langford. Speaking of the 49ers blitzes, is those blitz packages seem to keep Jay scrambling all game long. Regardless of whether or not they were converted into sacks, they disrupted plays, and they really kept the Bears' offense from getting into a rhythm. You also had the Bears picking up a lot of penalties that you don't really see from the Bears. They get 8 penalties for 72 yards, and that hurt the Bears a lot on on their momentum, couldn't establish a rhythm because you were getting penalties, cost them field position, cost them drives. It's just sloppy play, and that's not what a team that it's lacking a lot of talent and is winning by grinding it out and good coaching and being in the right position can afford to do to keep winning, especially if they have any aspirations of making the playoffs. What else? For the first time all season, I think the Bears got consistent pressure on the quarterback. You had Willie Young, Lamar Houston, Eddie Goldman, all regular contributors getting in there and causing some disruptions and getting to Blaine Gabbert. Didn't always equate to sack numbers, but they were for 3.5 quarters of the game. They shut down the 49ers offense for the most part and really set the stage. They got after the quarterback, and that was nice to see. Hopefully it's a testament to what they're doing on defense and getting better and getting healthier rather than it was the 49ers offense. But I think it's a little column A and a little column B. We'll see against the Redskins of what happens. If they're able to get after Kirk Cousins like they did Blaine Gabbert, they're going to be in pretty good shape because Blaine Gabbert beat the Bears with his feet and being able to take advantage. Kirk Cousins couldn't outrun a turtle. So it should be if they're able to get that same amount of pressure on Cousins, then they should be able to dominate the Redskins. And looking at the Bears' defensive backs is prior to that overtime, that 70-yard completion for the touchdown, is Blaine Gabbert had one completion of more than 10 yards to a wide receiver. One completion in an overtime game for a quarterback that played the whole game of more than 10 yards to a wide receiver. And that one play that was over 10 yards to a wide receiver was an 11-yard pass to Anquan Boldin. So they really kept Blaine Gabbert in check. And I don't think it was Blaine Gabbert playing badly. It was the Bears. I think they were getting pressure, and their cornerbacks had really tight coverage. Again, if you look at Pro Football Focus, is most of the Bears cornerbacks had really good games. Bryce Callahan, Kyle Fuller had really, really good games. That was nice to see. And it's a testament to the way the Bears defense has been playing lately. But then it was the mental lapses. The mental lapses are what really hurt the Bears. The TD at the end of the game, or to end the game in overtime, that's the doozy. And I had a couple people email me or message me and say that what the hell happened on that play. The Bears had really shut them down offensively and done a number on them. But then at the end of the game, the last 2 minutes of the game, and then in overtime, it's like the defense just turned off. And I'll deal first with the overtime touchdown. The Bears were in a cover 3 defense, and in that defense, if you run certain routes, you sort of put the cornerback in a tough position. Tracy Porter was the cornerback in question, and Krasinski and Adrian Amos were the safeties. The 49ers claimed that their strategy was runs and short passes to set this over. And I somehow don't want to really believe that because, the 49ers are a team with an anemic offense, and it's really mind-numbing to me to believe that they used a whole game-long anemic offense to be able to set up a nice 71-yard overtime pass. But I think that the route that Smith ran on that play was a perfect route versus that cover 3. It forces the cornerback into a tough decision. It requires really good communication with his communication just wasn't there. Porter, I can't say for certainty because I don't know the Bears, the play that they called and their exact scheme, but typically in that cover 3, Porter is going to be the responsible party. But he expected Adrian Amos to come and help him take up the coverage. Amos and the other safety, they, when you talk to them, they're both saying, all three of them are saying, it wasn't my fault. It was somebody else's fault, but I'm not going to name names. But it was really Porter's fault. Porter is supposed to be able to take his man unless he communicates otherwise for somebody else to cover him. And he broke his coverage and left that guy open. And it forced the two safeties to have to come over from different parts of the field to cover this guy deep. And it's really put them in an awkward position because you gave up your coverage. And Porter's been great all season long, especially the last few weeks. But on that play, he really blew it and it got burned bad. And that was a lack of coverage on his fault and a lack of communication. And it sucks that it had to come at the very last play of the game and give up a touchdown, but that's just the way it is. Vic Fangio is clearly mad about it because he came out and was saying that it's at this stage of the season, you can't be having plays like that. You can't not understand the defense that you're playing in. And Porter's a veteran; he should know better. But sometimes those lapses happen, and whenever the push comes to shove, and you have every defense has a fatal flaw, and when the offense happens to call a play that exploits that flaw, it's it stops being about the scheme and becomes about the player, and the player just made the wrong decision. And the game, don't put the game in Porter's hands, but it was a bad play, and they're gonna have to correct that going forward. Looking at the special teams again as a whole, probably not very good. But if you look at key aspects of it, they played pretty well. Deontay Thompson on kickoff returns has been just an absolute night and day difference versus Mark Mariani. Just look at the end of the regulation. The Bears, it's a tie game. The Bears are trying to march down the field with, there are less than 2 minutes left, and Deontay Thompson takes it and runs, 50 yards for the kick return and sets the Bears up in really good position where they was more than that because they set them up right in field goal range already. So that was, something the 49ers absolutely were ready for and doing everything they could to stop a long return, not give the Bears momentum. And Deontay Thompson still goes ahead and does it anyway. And then you had the fake punt return with Bryce Callahan, and other than the penalty there, it was a blatant penalty. It was a phenomenal call. It was a phenomenal execution. Bears had good coverage, but the two big knocks that take away from the Bears special teams yesterday were the saved punt that went through the back of the end zone. That was another Porter gaffe. Porter had a rough game yesterday. The 49ers player, if you don't recall, they punted and it started to go towards the end zone. The 49er player made this absolutely phenomenal play where he jumped, got the ball, flung it over his head, or was it behind his back? Sorry, I don't remember how he flung it, but he flung it behind him back into the field of play, and just like the 1-2 yard line. And instead of just letting them down it and getting the ball and having to start from your own, 2-3 yard line or whatever it was, is Porter goes over to pick the ball up and he bends over rather than crouches down to pick it up and tries to pick it up as he's running. Gets hit. So he touches the ball. It becomes a live ball at that point because the offensive player touched it, and goes into the end zone. And luckily is 8 49er players were fighting each other for the ball. And rather than just letting one guy get it and scoring a touchdown and having the 49ers take a huge advantage there, they knock it through the back of the end zone and it becomes a touchback for the Bears. And there was really nothing you can do. It was just an exceptional play on the 49ers to get the ball and try to down it really close to the end zone. So you can't really fault the Bears for that. But where you fault the Bears is Porter touches the ball and becomes a live ball. Whoever gets it has possession, especially right there at the end zone. It was a really dumb play on his part. Is let the ball go, just get out of the way. It's better to try to force the ball, having it on your 2-yard line and having to march 98 yards than giving the other team the ball at the 2-yard line. This way you can at least try to push the ball a little bit and give yourself a little room to punt and change the field position. But luckily, nothing came of it. It didn't hurt the Bears. Porter lucked out on that one. And then the absolute black eye of the night, Robbie Gould. Robbie Gould has been an all-time great kicker for the Bears. I mean, he's an all-time NFL great. If they put another kicker in the Hall of Fame, Robbie Gould's got the credentials to do it. He's just been phenomenal. But this season's been rough. Gould, who turned 34 on Sunday, made the first 17 field goal attempts he had this season. But since that time, he's gone 11 for 16, which is not very Robbie Gould-like. So 11 for 16 since the November 1st game against the Vikings. And this appears to be a common thread here to his misses. 4 of the first 5 have been wide left, and the 5th hit off the left upright at Qualcomm Stadium in San Diego. Gould's misses have come from 36, 40, 34, 47, and 51 yards. He's quoted as saying, "I feel terrible. I have a job to do. I didn't do that today. I hit the ball really well in the first half, and I had a lot of confidence going into those last 2 kicks. I just got quick on both of them and rushed them and hurried them. They're probably the worst kicks I've had all year." He had a chip shot. It was an absolute chip shot that from 35, 36 yards that would have won the Bears the game. No time on the clock. The Bears go home happy, wind up being 6-6 and still in the playoff hunt, and with a fairly easy schedule going forward. And instead, that sends the Bears into overtime where they lose, and you don't. You're pretty much, barring any sort of miracle, are out of the playoff berth, and you're instead of thinking about playoffs, you're thinking about draft position. And that right now, if you're looking at that, the Bears are picking 15th. As it stands right now, Bears are picking 15th. Then let's look at the rookies really quick. Is Bryce Callahan. He continues to impress. Undrafted rookie out of Rice. Good in coverage, good in special teams. Pro Football Focus rated him as a plus 3.3. I really think they found a slot cornerback, that nickel back. He's been phenomenal all this season. The guy that Sherrick McManus they thought they would have just been terrible. Bryce Callahan stepped up and just been really good. Adrian Amos. There was a play earlier that was ruled down, but in the heat of the moment, it looked like it was a live ball on the ground earlier in the game. And Adrian Amos, the players were playing like it was still a live ball. They were playing, waiting for the whistle. Adrian Amos picked up a live ball and started running. And then you just watched him, and he hit the second gear. And it was pretty awesome to see because he was already starting to slowly pull away from the guy chasing him. And then he just had this second gear, and it looked so graceful when he did it. It was really fluid, kind of like when you watch Olympic gold medal level sprinters like Michael Johnson and Usain Bolt. When they would run, you would just see them. They just this nice fluid motion, and then when it was time to put that next gear in, it just looked like they were just going even faster without having to do any sort of awkward mechanics. And you saw that out of Adrian Amos, and that's nice to see that he's got some jets. That's bodes well for the Bears because overall they lack a lot of team speed. But this game showed some of the rookiness for Adrian Amos, and all season long you've seen him play much more like a veteran than you have making rookie mistakes. But this game, he had some rookie mistakes. I thought he played pretty well for the most part for the first 3 quarters of the game, but in the fourth quarter, especially on those 2 touchdown passes, I think he could have been playing a lot better. He showed some of the greenness that he has, but still, Adrian Amos looks really good despite the rookie mistakes. And basically, if you look at the trade that the Bears did for Brandon Marshall, is the draft pick that they got back was the one he used to pick up Adrian Amos. So the Bears still have to be pretty glad that they were able to get Adrian Amos in the Brandon Marshall deal, because you were really close to just cutting Brandon Marshall, and you were able to get that pick, and you turned that into Adrian Amos. So you always have to look forward to those. Is even if you're only getting a late round pick for somebody that you were going to cut otherwise, is utilize that extra pick and turn it into a positive. Most people would be like, 5th round pick, blah, who cares? What do you do with a 5th round pick? But you turn it into your starting safety, who's been a really good defensive back for a defense that is starting to turn it on a little bit. What else? Eddie Goldman. Eddie Goldman was he's been a little quiet the last couple weeks, and I don't know if that's just because he didn't play that well, or if it's just that the position he plays just kind of a lackluster, not a lackluster, it's not the word I'm looking for. It's a underappreciated position that doesn't get a lot of glory. But yesterday, Eddie Goldman, he got he looked like a maniac. He was pushing the pocket up the middle. He was creating a lot of havoc, and that's the type of player that you expected to get in the second round, and that's the player he's turning into. So that's another solid pickup by the Bears. And then there's Hronis Grasu. He's a rookie center. It's one of the hardest positions to play as a rookie is the center position. You have to call the plays. You recognize the defense. You have to know who the blitzers are, where their pressure is going to come from. You have to snap the ball, which sounds like something easy because it's what you've been doing for years and years. But you're figuring out a much faster game with much more exotic defenses, with much bigger, stronger, faster men, and still block your man. There's really no easing into it either. He's shown some flashes of being a really capable blocker and doing some great things, but he's also been blown up on bull rushes. And if you think about the loss to the Broncos on that last play to try to tie the game up, is everybody else fired out from the snap for a run block, and you had Hronis Grasu retreated into pass blocking, and because he missed an audible. And so there's, I really think he's going to fill the role as Bears center for a number of years, but rookie centers take time, and they come with some growing pains, and that's what you're seeing with Hronis Grasu. But, even listen to Olin Kreutz talk about him. It's a hard position to play as a rookie, and Hronis Grasu is stepping right up in there and doing a fairly good job. He is getting better and better, but you're going to have to. It's going to take a little time and a little patience, and I think the Bears are giving that to him. And then a couple more notes about the Bears is the defense looked good for most of the game, but it was ultimately Blaine Gabbert's legs that beat the Bears. If you take away his overtime numbers, the passes that he threw in overtime, Blaine Gabbert barely threw for 100 yards in this game. He barely threw for 100 yards. And the 49ers, if you look at all of the running backs combined for the whole game, including overtime, they had under 50 yards rushing. But Blaine Gabbert had 75 yards, including that 44-yard touchdown run. So the Bears, it was Blaine Gabbert's feet that beat the Bears. It was 2 big plays and Blaine Gabbert's feet. That has to look favorable when you're playing the Redskins next week, because their quarterback does not have the nimble feet like Blaine Gabbert. But each week brings its new challenges, so the Bears are going to have to be up to it, and this is where we're going to have to separate the men from the boys. Is after a devastating loss like this, and just a really disappointing loss, and this is a trap game for the Bears. Is they came off a huge win. They have a week and a half, 10 days to prepare for this game against the 49ers at home, and they just And if you think about it, is who are the leaders on this team? Who are the guys that are leading everybody? And they're not leading by example. It's whoever it is that are the locker room leaders. They needed to go out this week, this whole week, these 10 days, and they needed to go out there and work like this was the biggest game of the year. And like playing the 49ers meant something and was going to be huge turnaround for this club, and have everybody else follow their example, whether it's Pernell McPhee or whether it's Jay Cutler, Alshon Jeffrey, whoever it may be. Is they needed to go out these last 10 days and just show in practice that this was their Super Bowl. They needed to go out and win this. And this is a trap game. And trap games really define who your leaders are and how they're leading your team. And that's where the Bears fell flat on their face. Is they need somebody to step up and lead by example and show them that, you know what, we can't take weeks off. We're not talented enough. We don't have the luxury of being able to lose a game and still be in the playoff hunt. We've got to win these games, and we've got to turn their home record around, and we've got to beat a team that's really struggling. They go out there and practice hard and watch every second of film and watch it again until they know without even blinking what the 49ers like to do and play that. And the Bears didn't do that. The Bears got out, and I don't think they were out coached, because Jim Tom Sewell is not a good coach. They got beat by players being lackadaisical and not being ready to play. And that's on the Bears. That's on the Bears players. The Bears gave this game away. Just absolutely flat out gave this game away. That was theirs to win. And getting to the 500 record has proven to be a real tough task. A win in this game puts the Bears one game out of the wild card. And with a Arizona team that's just floundering, they just really had to catch up to Seattle. But now we have to start looking at the draft position, and that's just the way it is. Let's see. Anything else I want to talk about with the Bears? Like I said, is the Bears pass rush did pretty well. Eddie Goldman had a plus 3.3 rating in Pro Football Focus. Lamar Houston had a plus 2.1. Willie Young had a plus 1.6. Eddie Goldman had a plus 4.0. It was Bryce Callahan put a plus 3.3, and Kyle Fuller at plus 2.8. Theoretically, everything pointed that the Bears should have won this game. They had better offensive numbers. They had better defensive numbers. Their individual players played better. It was just mental lapses and mistakes that just absolutely gave this game away. And they're going to have to play better than that if they're going to beat the Redskins. And the Redskins aren't a very good team. They should beat the Redskins, but the Redskins, if you don't jump on them, they're the type of team that they can run the ball well and play pretty decent defense, and they can keep you in any game. So the Bears, if they expect to win this game, they're going to have to establish a rhythm in offense, be able to move the ball, win that field position battle, and then they're going to have to stop the run, just flat out. So I really do see the Bears winning next week. But if they lose that locker room, which I don't think they'll do with veteran coaches like Fangio and Fox, but if they do lose that next game, it could turn ugly for the Bears. And they're at the point right now where I really, barring any sort of miracles, Seattle losing some key players and not being able to win, or the Vikings just falling flat on their face and losing the rest of their games. The Bears don't have much of a shot for the playoffs, but you're looking at who's going to be there next year. You're playing for positions next year. You're playing for contracts next year, and you're auditioning for next year. And any player that is not performing this year, they're going to start looking at who's going to be their guy next year, whether that be Robbie Gould, I wouldn't be shocked if they brought in extra kickers this week to compete with him, because if you don't think Robbie Gould is going to be your kicker in 2016, you might as well start auditioning players now for the kicker, give you a better sample size, then move on. Whether that be wide receiver positions, whether that be strong safety, whatever it is whatever position that they're not settled on, they're going to keep bringing in guys to see who's going to audition for next year. And if you want a position and you want to win this roster next year, you better play this year, because if you are not performing this year, they're not going to be expecting anything from you next year. And that's the way this regime works, and it's a different game in town. They're going to build a winner, and if they're going to make sure they have people with the right attitude. And I don't know if Marty Bennett is going to be part of this team because of the way his attitude has been, but this is a team that they're going to play hard and they're going to win. Very blue collar, very nose to the grindstone. So I don't expect them to lose the locker room. Fox has enough credentials where he can sit down and go, hey, look, when I took over the Panthers, they were a 1-win team. And 2 years later, I had them in the Super Bowl. Play hard for me, and we'll get to that same point. And I really think with veteran coaches like that, you're going to be able to show them the way and keep that locker room intact. And I guess that's really all I have for the Bears. And then for the last of the show, we're going to quickly cover the Blackhawks and the Bulls a little bit. We'll do more Cubs and White Sox next week. So let's move on to the Blackhawks quickly. First thing I want to talk about is who that third player is on the Taves line. You have Jonathan Taves and you have Marian Hossa, and they're pretty much fixtures. And that third position, Coach Q likes to call that the lottery spot. And they've had lottery spot tryouts all season long, and they still haven't been able to find out who it is that is going to fill that role. They've tried Andrew Shaw, Ryan Garbutt, Victor Tikhonov, Marco Dano, Teuvo Teravainen. They've tried Artemi Panarin, and nobody's really stuck. I mean, to the point where they took Victor Tikhonov and put him on waivers and got rid of him because he just wasn't performing. So that they're really struggling to find that top line left winger that's filling that void that Patrick Sharp and Brandon Saad filled over the last several years. And it's been a struggle. I mean, the latest man up is Teuvo Teravainen, and you've got to hope that he can be able to do it, because to be able to play in that spot, you've got to be able to skate fast. You've got to be able to, to be able to recognize that Jonathan Taves and Marian Hossa, not only are they great offensive players and are they fast skaters, but they're really defensive-minded players, and they're going to get the puck back and convert it into an offensive scoring chance. And you've got to be able to be ready for that. And you've got to be able to skate with them. And you've got to be able to play at the tempo that they're at. And I think, honestly, the best player on the roster to be able to do that is Teuvo Teravainen. And he's going to have to prove it. And part of that is you saw recently there was a great scoring chance where he had the puck on a breakaway, and as they got closer and closer, it seemed obvious to everybody that was watching the game that if you're Teuvo Teravainen, you have to take that shot, and that's the best scoring chance you have. But instead, he watched and was trying to get it to Marian Hossa, and ended up making a pass that got broken up because the passing lanes were taken away. It was the shooting lanes that were still there. So he's got to be able to switch gears and be able to think a little bit more selfishly. Is you have guys that are willing to give it up in Jonathan Taves and Marian Hossa. They're going to give you opportunities. You've got to be able to take those opportunities. You've got to be able to put the puck in the net and not worry about playing so much so selfishly. Is you've got to be able to skate with those guys, and you've got to be able to shoot the puck when you've got an opening lane. Let them help come back and clean it up, or get the rebound, or give the puck back afterwards. But it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, but I think Teuvo Teravainen is going to be the guy that fills that role for the most part. I mean, you're always going to have tinkering Joel Quenneville, but I think Teuvo Teravainen is going to be the guy that sticks with that spot and maintains on that line. So where have the Blackhawks been struggling? Part of it is just those puck battles, those 50-50 puck battles, and they're not winning those. And if you expect to maintain possession of the puck in the offensive zone, is you're going to have to win those battles. You've got to win those, keep the puck in your own zone so you can keep offensive pressure on, and that's how you get more and more scoring chances. You want to keep the puck in the offensive zone, and if you're the Blackhawks, you just haven't been doing that. And they've been working on it in practice. I mean, it's something Andrew Shaw loves. It's just something they're not doing well on the ice during games. And part of it is they're a finesse skating team. Part of it is just they're not, their guys are just getting beat out. It's an old-fashioned butt whooping down there. And basically, as far as offense goes, this is a one-line team. Most of the Blackhawks' success over the last several years is because they have been able to roll 4 quality lines at you. Whether they be the Tave line, the Kane line, those 3 and 4 lines, which have been what separated them in the playoffs, because you're able to rest your top line guys a little more because you have your 4th line out there, and you generate more and more lines of pressure against the other team's defensemen. And right now, the Blackhawks are a one-line team. Even that Taves line is not doing anything at all. It's all that Kane, Panarin, Anisimov line. Sorry, I was blanking on another Russian name. And that's carrying you basically all on offense. And speaking of Patrick Kane, let's talk about that streak. Patrick Kane just broke Bobby Hull's 21-game scoring streak record by the Blackhawks. And Patrick Kane now has scored in 22 straight games, scored a point. And in those 22 games, he has 13 goals and 36 points. And he continued it and got that 22nd straight game by an assist on an empty net goal to Artemi Panarin against Winnipeg. And like I said, he broke Bobby Hull's 21-game streak from the 1971-72 season. So several years before I was born, that was the longest streak the Blackhawks ever had. And Patrick Kane, went right through it and shows no signs of slowing down. And if you want to think about it statistically, even looking at the rate Patrick Kane scores and in his historic scoring numbers, to consider that he might have a 22-game point streak, there's a 1 in 13,000 chance. 1 in 13,000 to go 22 straight games with scoring a point. That's just astronomical. That's just amazing to think about. And what else to think about is during these 22 games, he's got 36 points. No other player in the NHL has 36 points on the entire season, let alone Patrick Kane having him in just these last 22 games. That's another thing to phenomenally think about. And that current active streak of, active players that have a scoring streak, it's the only person ahead of Kane is Sidney Crosby's 25 goals or 25 games in the 2010-2011 season. And if you take a look at those, what makes this even more phenomenal is if you take those 2 scoring streaks away, the next highest scoring one comes in the 92-93 season. So it's, the game is so much different than it was back when most of these long streaks were happening. You have Gretzky has a 51-game streak, and he's got 2 of at least 25, and Mario Lemieux has 2 of like 25. But those are all in a different era when teams scored a lot more. This new era, it's really impressive. The Crosby and Kane streaks, they're ones that don't come along very often. Like I said, is the 92-93 season was the last time anything happened besides those two the Crosby and Kane ones. 92, 93 was a long time ago. I mean, we're looking at, 20 some years, almost a quarter of a century. That's a long time ago. And to think about the year that Gretzky had the 51 goal or game streak, I mean, Kane's not going to get 51. Let's not be ridiculous. But during that season that Gretzky got that 51 straight games, Edmonton was scoring almost 6 goals a game. They were at 5.9 goals a game. 5.9 goals a game average. Look at that awesome scoring ability. And that was it was partly because they had a really talented team, and partly because it was just a much higher scoring league at the time. The Blackhawks now are scoring 2.9 goals a game, so less than half of that. And you still have Patrick Kane scoring 22 straight games, or tallying a point. That's just absolutely phenomenal. And hopefully he's able to get to that 25 game streak so he can have the current modern record. What else? Just a couple more notes. Is Trevor Daley has an upper body injury, but he's day to day, so that's good outlook for the Blackhawks struggling defense is getting Daley back. And then, like I said, is Victor Tikhonov was not playing well. He was struggling all season. The Blackhawks. What I keep saying the Bears. The Blackhawks took a flyer on him for about $1 million, and they knew that they were only $29,000 over or under the salary cap. So they wanted to bring Bickle back up, but in order to do so, they had to dump basically $1 million worth of salary. That's basically what Victor Tikhonov's salary was. And he wasn't playing well. They decided to put him on waivers. And I think it was the Coyotes picked him up. I read it and I forget. I believe the Coyotes picked him up, who was the team that drafted him originally. So Victor Tikhonov, best of luck to you. But the Blackhawks brought Brian Bickle back, and in his first game back, he absolutely leveled Dustin Byfuglien, just laid him out, which was great to see. I don't know what you're going to see from Bickle. I thought he skated pretty well in Rockford, enough for them to bring him back. Hopefully that lit a fire under his butt, and you start to get the play of the guy that they paid $4 million a year for, but we'll see. So hopefully we see some little bit of turnaround from the Blackhawks. They're coming off a nice win against Winnipeg, who's a really tough team, winning 3-1. But we'll see how that goes. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the Bulls, and I don't want to harp on them too much, but this is how I want to start. Really? Another loss to the Hornets? I realize the Hornets are a much better team than they were last year, but you can't lose this many games to the Charlotte Hornets. You had 14 turnovers. You have Tony Snell played 12 minutes and didn't shoot at all. Didn't even attempt a basket. He was 0 points on 0 for 0 shooting with 0 rebounds, 1 assist, and was a -3 on the court. If those are like some. I don't even know. I guess those are like Kirk Heinrich numbers. I mean, what's the point of having Tony Snell on the court if he plays 12 minutes, doesn't have a rebound, 1 assist, doesn't even attempt a shot, no points, is a -3, so he's not even playing that good at defense when he's out there. It's really sad, and Tony Snell is a guy that they've got to upgrade over. You can't rely on that. And with Mike Dunleavy, was supposed to be back by now, but he had a setback in his back injury, and you're looking at him not being back for another month and a half, 2 months. And that was really going to be your savior of the season at that point, because when you have Dunleavy come back, then you start him, and whenever you need to spell him, you either decide, do I need offense, in which case you bring in Doug McDermott, or do I need defense, and that's when you bring in Tony Snell, and you don't have to worry about starting those guys or playing either one of them extended minutes. But Dunleavy's going to be out for a while more, and who knows if he even comes back at that point, or how effective he is, because back injury is bad news. And Mirotic in that same game played 27 minutes and only scored 7 points on 3 of 11 shooting from the floor and 1 for 6 from three-point line. You got to get more from Nikolai Mirotic. You thought he would start to thrive under this offense, and he's just really not. Jimmy Butler had a good game, 25 points. McDermott played 33 minutes and had 13 points on 5 of 9 shooting, and another 3 for 5 from the three-point line. Not bad for Doug McDermott. But you had 14 turnovers as the Bulls, and it wasn't any one person. It was a bunch of everybody had some turnovers. It was equally spread out. If you're the Bulls, you can't turn the ball over 14 times. You can't have Tony Snell not scoring. You can't have Nikolai Mirotic not scoring. And looking at the Bulls' offense through 17 games, you're 27th in scoring. In offense, you're 27th in offense. You're at the bottom of the league. I mean, everyone thought when we got Fred Hoiberg as the new coach that he would be able to turn this offense around and really turn this into a pro-style offense that would be able to play in the in the NBA and be able to compete against teams and really be able to push it and win some ball games. And they're not responding to his offense. And I'm not blaming Hoiberg at this point. It's the players aren't buying into the system. And here's some of the things that they're not doing. First of all, your guards aren't running. Hoiberg wants you to push the ball and push it forward and constantly pressure and keep the defense on their heels. When you get a rebound, the guards need to be running to get their momentum towards the basket. And the Bulls aren't doing that. If you look at the shots they're taking, only 31% of the shots that they take have over 15 seconds left on the shot clock. If you look at it, that's a good amount of time left, and they're only 31% of their shots are on there. So basically 69% of their shots are coming with less than 15 seconds on the shot clock. And if you look, the more time they have on the shot clock is the higher percentage they're shooting. When they're getting down to 5 seconds, 4 seconds, etc., they're not shooting the ball that well, and that's not the Fred Hoiberg offense that he wants. So you don't have the guards buying in and pressuring like that, and also you're not having the fast-paced game you want. You want to be able to create turnovers, and you want to get a lot of fast break points. And the Bulls they're not forcing turnovers, and they're not getting fast break points. They are dead last in the NBA in causing turnovers. They're dead last in the NBA in causing turnovers, and they're third from last in transition points. That's got to change if you're going to be Fred Hoiberg offense and win on that. And then you also have Paul Gasol, who doesn't want to run up and down the court. He just doesn't want to. He wants to set the offense and play in a set offense and do his thing, and then slowly make the transition down to play defense, whatever defense he plays. And actually running up and down the court is not something that he's able to do at being 35, 36 years old, or something that he wants to do. It's not happening. So if you're the Bulls, you've got to figure out what it is you're going to do. You've got, Paul Gasol has said he's going to opt out of his contract at the end of the year. So Paul Gasol is an expiring contract at this point. You got to think about trading him. You got to think about trading Joakim Noah. You've got to think about making moves that are going to help you now and help you next year, because you need to improve now, and you need to start getting better, because if you're the Bulls, this is not working right now. Your player, Paul Gasol is already upset with the way things are going, and it's only going to get worse as Fred Hoiberg establishes the offense he's going to run. And I'm telling you, if you're looking at management and you go, do I side with Fred Hoiberg, the guy fired Tom Thibodeau to hire, and sign to a multi-year contract? Or am I siding with 35, 36-year-old Paul Gasol, who's going to opt out of his contract at the end of the year anyway? If you're looking at the future of the franchise, you're going to stay with Fred Hoiberg. So you might as well trade Paul Gasol now while he still has trade value. Get something for him. You're not going to get a ton for him because he's an expiring contract, but you're not going to win with him at this point. He's not the guy unless you want to change your whole style of offense and play a more set offense. You're not going to win with Paul Gasol. You're going to need to find guys that are willing to run up and down the court and push the ball and really establish that Fredberg style of offense. So we'll see what happens. I mean, but statistically, at this point in the season, you know who your team is. I mean, statistically, most teams don't improve on where they are at this point. They may, as far as what their offensive numbers are. So this is what you're going to get unless you make a move, and you've got to make a move sooner rather than later if you're the Bulls. And the brass have to be able to pull the trigger on this and bring somebody in, even if it's taking a flyer on a trade. Is you're not going to win with Gasol. And I like Paul Gasol, and I thought he's still got some gas in his tank, but just this team is not the team that he needs to be on. This has got to be a youth movement. You've got to find room for Bobby Portis, and you've got to be able to push the ball and press the offense and be able to score points on fast breaks. And you're not going to do that with Paul Gasol. And really, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Thank you guys so much for listening. And just to sum it up is you can always hit us up. If you have questions, comments, you want to be on the air, whatever, we're By the Fans for the Fans show. You can hit us up on Twitter at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Make sure you are subscribing to us on Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, however you listen. And make sure you're sharing it with your friends and family and loved ones. Anybody who listens to Chicago sports, watches Chicago sports. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down